Hey everybody, this is your Right Geek, honorary man king, and leader of the Awkward Cause Squad, here with this week's video. And this week I have decided to talk about Bass Reeves episode 2. This is one of the Allegiance Arts comics that is currently being sold in Walmart. It is my favorite of the 4 comics that they are selling through this outlet. Today I'm going to go into some of the reasons why I love this comic so much and why I have declared it in my title one of the most moral comics of 2020. If you are someone like, for example, number one Marmaduke fan who is interested in morality and Christianity in comics, this is a comic you definitely need to check into, pick this up, because this I just love. So let's get into it here. So Bass Reeves, this is actually based on a real law enforcement officer who lived out in the West in the 19th century, which makes the story all the more amazing, because this was a real guy, a real hero. So that makes it even more interesting. And episode 2 starts off, first of all, with several pages that basically demonstrate that this guy is extraordinarily good at his job. He very effectively catches his man, and is able to put large numbers of these criminals that are lurking out where he is in Oklahoma. He's able to capture them and jail them. He's basically rising in his field because of how competent he is. We see here, again, on these pages, he's running these sting operations to capture these whiskey runners and so on that he's going after. And basically, like I said, basically the point of all of these pages is to demonstrate that that Bass Reeves, our hero here, he is extraordinarily good at his job. And as you can see, as we're paging through here, it has a very interesting. The art is it's stylized, but I think it's quite interesting. It is not unpleasant to look at. And I think it works very well for the story that it is telling. So the first few pages, again, they establish that Bass Reeves, he is extremely good at his job. And then this is where things get interesting. On this page, we switch back to Bass Reeves' hometown, and we check in on what's going on with his son. And what we have here is we have his son basically getting peer pressured into stealing from the general store, as kids often are. So the other boys there are telling him, stop being a sissy. I'm not a sissy. R2 am not. And then they basically dare him to prove it. And he goes into the general store and steals something from the store, but he gets caught by the clerk. So this is kind of a typical sort of young boy behavior, being dared into something that he shouldn't do. And that's kind of how the adults in his life respond to that. They say, so we have the local judge, and his mom's like, I don't know what to say, Judge, but he's never done anything like this before. And the judge says, I understand, Ellie, but it's just that I've seen this kind of thing before. A boy gets it in his head to test his boundaries. He takes dares and challenges in order to impress his friends and show how much of a man he is. And then Mom says, I wish Bass was here. Bass was good with the boy, knew what he needed. What's coming up here is the fact that it's very interesting because Bass, as we established in the opening pages, is extraordinarily good at his job. The problem is that his job is taking him away from his family, which is that's something that I can sort of relate to personally because my father was in the military, and when I was growing up, he was often away from his family, serving our country in the military. That's sort of for people who work in law enforcement or in the military. That is sort of the dilemma that you face, is that your job is essential for the proper functioning of our society, but at the same time, you have to. There are sacrifices involved in doing jobs like this, and so the question becomes like, how willing are you, for the sake of rising in your job, how willing are you to be away from your family at a time when, especially your son, might need your guidance, because sons in particular need the guidance of a father to put them on the right path. So the judge wants to say Bass is an example of what a lawman should be, what we all should be. So the judge values Bass as a lawman, but again, we have this issue where he's being kept away from his family, and that is the central dilemma of this book. And then, of course, mom rakes the kid over the coals. Boy, do you know what could have happened to you if this was the old days? So she yells at him because it could have ended much worse. It could have ended much worse for this kid if it weren't for who his father was and his father's status in their society. And then mom goes with, "You just wait until daddy gets home." And this is the real gut punch right here. The kid says, "What, daddy?" So again, that's so good. That's such a good, that highlights so well, again, the dilemma that people who are tasked with keeping our society safe, the dilemmas they face with choosing between the demands of their job and the demands of their family, because oftentimes both cannot be dealt with simultaneously, not with jobs that are this demanding and that take you away from home so often. So that's such good writing. That's such good writing. I cannot emphasize that enough. That you have this sort of this conflict, this central conflict here between the demands of a family and the demands of a career. And then we, on page 15, we have Bass coming back home. And this is where we see that mom is troubled, and for good reason. So then Bass notices that, and he's like, "Okay, out with it, woman. What's wrong?" "It's Benji." "What about him?" "He was caught stealing at the general store." "What?" And then we see him get very mad. "I finna to tan that boy's hide." He's ready to spank his kid for stealing. And then mom stops him. But that mom stops him and points out, "But the boy misses his daddy." And that gives him cause to steal. It gives him cause to get his daddy's attention. So mom basically, confronts Bass and says, "Hey, you have this job and it's an honorable job, but don't forget you have a family too, and your family needs you and needs your guidance." And the reason why I'm declaring this comic moral is how Bass responds to that challenge. He ends up in church with the Reverend. And he believes that he may be getting a little bit prideful. So what brings you by? And Bass says, pride is like a viper, and I've been bit. And the Reverend's like, I don't understand. I'm a lawman now, Rev. And from what I've heard, one of the best, if not the best. And that's the problem. Bringing the rabble to justice comes easy to me. It's a gift that God has blessed you with, or a test that I don't think I can pass. So, his wife has just challenged him with the fact that he's away from his family so often. And his response is not to say, shut up, woman, I know what I'm doing. His response is to actually take that to heart and to see it for the dilemma that it is, to recognize that while he has a responsibility to the community he serves, he also has a responsibility to his family at home. And he takes seriously the possibility that that his job is in fact interfering with his responsibilities as a father. So this whole scene right here, where he's talking to the Reverend, is absolutely amazing. And moral. This is moral. Right here, he says, Nellie says I'm neglecting him, all the kids. Now I feel like I may be sacrificing them for my own sinful pride of success. The Reverend says, you're a man of integrity and responsibility. People look up to you, including your children. I'm not that good, Rev. So I love that too. So this character is moral enough and has such a strength of character that when the Rev basically tries to reassure him that he is in fact a good man, he doubts it. This is the sign of someone who is a man of genuine faith, who recognizes that as good as people might think he is, he still has a sinful nature that he has to keep his eye on. I would tell you that it's good to examine yourself. But remember this, he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ the Lord. It gives me comfort. What does that mean? The Lord is working in you, Bass, and he's not done with you yet. So I'll say to you that it's not always about trusting yourself to always make the right decision. It's about trusting the Lord to work it out in his own good time. So we have like a real honest and beautiful portrayal of a character's Christianity and his deep moral character and his deep integrity. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying this is like the most moral book of 2020. And if you're interested in morality in comics, it's something that you really do need to pick up. And then we continue the story here with there's sort of a big bad criminal that is wreaking havoc in the area that presumably in the next episode, Bass Reeves is going to have further confrontations with. So that's kind of how we finish up the issue, is with this little cliffhanger here with this Yaki character that will apparently be his Bass's principal antagonist in the next issue. But again, this the central conflict of this issue, the conflict between Bass's responsibility to his job and the fact that he's rapidly rising in his job because of how competent he is, that the conflict between that and what's going on at home, and the fact that his job is taking him away from his family, and that it is possibly having a negative effect on one of his sons. It's so well written. It's so good. And the character's response to being challenged on how often he spends away from his family the fact that he responds with integrity and actual self-searching and questioning about his own motives. It's absolutely amazing. So if you see Bass Reeves episode 2 in a Walmart in your area, definitely pick it up, especially if you're interested in reading about a character of deep integrity and moral fortitude. It's definitely a high recommend. So have any of you who are listening now read this particular comic, and what do you think about it? Please comment below with your opinions and thoughts, and I will speak to you again next week.